Welcome everybody to the Nature of Teaching Professional Development webinar series. My name is Lauren Teamy and I am the Ag and Natural Resources Educator for Purdue Extension in Delaware County. Today's webinar is going to cover the unit Food Waste Solutions. This is going to be a 30-minute webinar offering two lessons, that are going to teach students about food waste and how they can reduce food waste in both homes and schools. Joining me today is John Hawley, the Ag and Natural Resources Educator and Community Development Educator with Purdue Extension out of Dearborn County. John is also a supporting partner for the National Farm to School Network. Today he's going to be introducing the unit, followed by some individual videos on the lessons themselves and the activities. I'm then going to finish the webinar highlighting additional resources and the procedure to obtain your certification of completion for this webinar. And so with that, John, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Lauren, thank you so much. I really appreciate the chance to help with this webinar. As Lauren mentioned, my name is John Hawley with Purdue Extension in Dearborn County, Indiana. This food waste and natural resources curriculum, as well as the unit here, Food Waste Solutions, is a very engaging set of lessons, a very engaging, subject overall. You're going to find that your students will be able to use the real life comparisons and bring these lessons home, not only to their friends and their family, but to the other students within their classrooms. There are a lot of relevant and real life examples that the students will be able to walk through, as well as you as a teacher may be able to take some of these lessons away and use them with other curriculum that you're utilizing within the classroom. Today we're going to cover two lessons. The first is Food Waste Solutions for School. The second is Food Waste Solutions for the Home. These are targeted to specific grade levels, and you'll see within your unit packet and within the lesson plans the references to certain academic and curriculum standards. There's also an estimated time for these lessons that runs roughly about an hour a piece. That's helpful for you as a teacher to know when to fit these into certain class periods. There's also a list of required materials that you will need and procedures for the hands-on activities that actually walk you through step-by-step how to utilize the lesson effectively within the classroom. Our colleague, Rebecca Cates, is the instructor for these recorded webinars, so we'll have her covering both lessons 1 and lesson 2, and we'd also like to thank Rod Williams for his contributions to this part of the nature of teaching. But with that, now we will go on to lesson number 1, Food Waste Solutions for the School.
Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Cates and I'm the Urban Agriculture Extension Educator with Purdue Extension in Lake County, Indiana. Today I'm going to be talking about a lesson plan called Food Waste Solutions for School that you can use with your students either in school or virtually at home. So first, we're going to find where the lesson plan is freely downloadable from the Nature of Teaching website, purdue.edu/nature. So I'm going to share my screen. And if you go to purdue.edu/nature in your browser, this is the homepage you'll go to, the homepage for the Nature of Teaching. You can go to the top and click the Formal Curriculum tab and click on Food Waste. And then you will scroll down to get to the Food Waste Solutions unit. So this is a lesson from a 2-lesson unit called Food Waste Solutions. You'll click Download and you'll go to these 3 clickable downloads. So you have the lesson plan itself, which is Food Waste Solutions, and then you have 2 videos that you can use for the second lesson, Food Waste Solutions for Home. So we'll click on the lesson plan and click the free download button, and it will take you to the lesson. If we scroll down, we can see an overview for the lesson, which shows you the estimated amount of time needed for each lesson, the vocabulary that students will learn in the lesson plans, and the objectives for the lessons. You also see the next generation and core standards. This lesson is intended primarily for grades 2 through 5. And you'll also see required materials. This looks like a really long list of materials, but it's things that you can find at home typically. So you'll need things that we provide as printouts, and then also the students will be doing an activity where they're building a waste-free lunch. So they can just use common lunch items that they would put in a lunchbox. We also provide teacher materials so that you can feel like the expert in the content, so you don't have to be an expert in food waste. And if we scroll down, we'll see our lesson for today, which is food waste solutions for school. We'll see that this lesson plan uses math and engineering and science standards. And this lesson encourages students to explore and discuss reasons and solutions for food waste at school. And it should take about 30 minutes, not including an optional food waste audit that students could do at home or school. So before we even start working with the students, we're going to download a couple of infographics. We have one infographic for this lesson, which is all about reducing food waste in school. And then we have another infographic for home. And we're going to print one per student, or if they're at home, you can send it to them. And then we're going to start out by asking students, what is food waste? Are leftovers food waste? Are inedible scraps like bones and cores of food, pits, are those food waste? And according to our definition, they're not, because they can't be eaten. So only edible food that is thrown away is food waste in our lesson. Then we're going to make sure that students understand that just by reviewing. And you can optionally have students complete a pre-test and a post-test. The pre-test at the beginning, the post-test at the end, so that we can understand their knowledge gain, and maybe you can use to give a grade for the class. Then we can ask students, why do you think some people waste food at school? And you can write their ideas on the board, or if you're using Zoom or another online virtual platform, you can annotate or use another feature to have them write their ideas. And then we also provide examples in the teacher materials so that if anything is missed or doesn't get brought up, you can bring those up. And then after that, we're going to ask students, how can we waste less food at school? And again, have them write their answers on the board. And again, we provide some answers in the teacher materials. Then we're going to introduce the concept of food waste solutions. And we provide some solutions in the teacher's notes that you can share with students. And then we're going to go from that into the waste-free lunch game, which is a way to reinforce for them in a fun way how they can build a waste-free lunch. So we have examples and instructions for the waste-free lunch game down below. So on 2 desks in front of the classroom, or if students are at home, they can do this just in their homes. You're going to randomly lay out 2 reusable containers and reusable options that, for example, you're going to have some materials that are conducive to reducing food waste and some materials that lead to waste. So for example, I have here a bag of chips that are prepackaged. If a student doesn't finish eating these, they might just throw them away because otherwise they're going to get stale. If you don't provide a bag clip, which might be another way to get around that, versus a resealable container of chips that they can seal the top back on if they don't eat all of it. Similarly, you could do that with raisins. So we have a prepackaged single-use thing of raisins versus a reusable thing of raisins. You might have a whole apple versus slices of apples. You might have a package of baby carrots versus a package of carrots in a reusable container. You might have a homemade sandwich versus a pre-made sandwich that you get from a store that's in a non-reusable container. You could even have reusable water bottles versus a juice box or a container of soda or something like that. And you could even do a reusable lunchbox versus a non-reusable lunchbox. And so you can have students do this as a competition if they're in the classroom, or if they're able to work with their families or siblings. You can divide them into 2 teams. So then they're competing, and the 2 teams run up to the front of the classroom, where you have all of your materials laid out, and they build their own waste-free lunch by putting in the items that are conducive to reducing food waste. So those reusable containers, the cut up apples, the reusable drink containers, things like that. And then the student that builds the most waste-free lunch in the shortest amount of time wins a point for their team. And then we also provide kind of an answer key using the materials, based on the materials that we suggest. An optional extension for this, if you have a lot of students and they're getting kind of bored, maybe they need an extra challenge, is you can hide materials around the classroom that then they have to find, which adds an extra layer of challenge. So once you complete that game, you can have students do the post test if you're doing that optionally, and then review with students using some review questions that we provide here. What are some things that you can do at school to reduce food waste? How can you make a waste-free lunch? You can give each student an infographic that they can share with their families. You can talk about the infographic, have them share different parts and read different parts of the infographic. And then you can follow up the next day by asking how many of them shared with someone that they know. As an optional extension for this, you can teach students about how to conduct a food waste audit using the EPA Guide to Conducting a Student Food Waste Audit, which we link here. And it also provides visual aids and instructions for conducting an audit, printable log sheets that students can use, so then your classroom can be in charge of conducting the food waste audit for the school and bring food waste education to the rest of the school. So that's food waste solutions at school. We hope you enjoyed this lesson and come back to visit us soon.
All right, thank you to Becca Cates for covering our lesson number 1, food waste solutions for school. I think when I look at that lesson plan and what I'm able to get out of it is, like I said at the beginning, these are very engaging lessons that will directly apply to not only your own experiences as a teacher, but directly to those students' lives. And when you walk through those sort of hands-on activities, it really drives a lot of these messages home about the problems we struggle with food waste and how we can reutilize things like reusable containers, and how to really stick to that mantra that so many of these kids and students in school already know: reduce, reuse, recycle. That's why some of this curriculum in this food waste solutions unit is absolutely critical. I think it's, like I said, a really great way to drive a lot of these messages home. And, as we always address in the, targeted grade levels and the standards, is you not only talk about biology subjects, but engineering and math, and a lot of these activities walk through writing. And so I really like that one as far as food waste solutions for school, and using those relevant examples that the students see within their own school walls. No matter what school you are in, there are always different food waste topics that can be brought up. And my encouragement for you as a teacher is to find relevant examples within your school and relate those directly to the lesson. If you look at the examples and the suggested materials and other items listed in the unit guide here, some of those examples may not seem quite as relevant to you. Find something similar within your school that will be more relevant to those students, whether it's reusable containers in the cafeteria, recycling receptacles, similar activities that other classes are doing, etc. So we really hope that you enjoyed lesson number 1, food waste solutions for school. Now we're going to move on to the final lesson in the food waste solutions unit, and that is lesson number 2, food waste solutions for home. So once again, it'll be our colleague Rebecca Cates covering this lesson, and we hope you enjoy.
Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca Cates and I'm the Urban Agriculture Extension Educator with Purdue Extension in Lake County, Indiana. Today I'm going to be going over a lesson plan called Food Waste Solutions for Home Through the Nature of Teaching. So let's get started. We're going to share my screen. and go to the Nature of Teaching website, which you can type into your browser, purdue.edu/nature, and you get to this website, which is the home page. And then you're going to click on the Formal Curriculum tab and click Food Waste. Then we can scroll down to Food Waste Solutions and click Download. You're going to come to a page that has the lesson plan, Food Waste Solutions, and 2 videos that will be used for this lesson plan. So I already have those pulled up, and you can pull those up ahead of time when you're preparing for the lesson. And we're just going to click on the lesson plan, and you're going to click Free Download. So this lesson, Food Waste Solutions for Home, is part of a unit of 2 lesson plans that has Food Waste Solutions for School and then Food Waste Solutions for Home. So we have another video for Food Waste Solutions for School. We're going to scroll down. You see the lesson overview that talks about how long the lesson should take to teach, the vocabulary students will learn, the objectives, the next generation science standards and core standards, and any required materials you'll need for both lessons. We also provide teacher materials so that you are the expert of any information you need to teach the lesson. And then this is our lesson 1, Food Waste Solutions for School. We're going to go by that and scroll down to page 8, which is lesson 2, Food Waste Solutions for Home. So this lesson encourages students to explore and discuss reasons and solutions for food waste at home. You see these 2 activity icons up top that shows students will learn reading and math skills. The lesson should take about 30 minutes to teach, and here are the required materials. So we have optional pre-post tests if you're doing this for a grade or want to assess student knowledge change from pre to post. We also have infographics that you can download from the Nature of Teaching website for students to take home or print out at home so that they can talk with their families and friends about what they learned. If you're doing this in person, students will need sticky notes. If you're doing it virtually, you can use Zoom Annotate or Google Classroom or Jamboard or something like that. You're also going to need, if you're doing this in person, carrots and apples and various things to build the compost bin for different activities in this lesson. We also have those videos that demonstrate these activities so that if you're not doing it in person, you can just have students watch the videos and they can do them at home. So again, before beginning the lesson, you should download those infographics and the videos, so the videos are ready to use. Then once you're with the students, you can ask them what they know about food waste. What is food waste? Are leftovers food waste? And explain that no, if food is eaten before it's thrown away and it's edible, then it is not food waste. Are inedible scraps and bones food waste? No, because they can't be eaten. But if food is edible and thrown away, then that would be considered food waste for the sake of this lesson. Then you can have students complete the pre-test if you're doing that and ask students why they think some people waste food waste at home. And so this is a brainstorming session of the lesson where students will either write their ideas on a sticky note and attach it to a board, write it directly on a whiteboard or chalkboard or smartboard, whatever you're using in the classroom, or again, using those online options like Google Classroom. And then if there are still some ideas that students haven't said, like from the teacher's notes, you can provide those. And then the next brainstorming topic is to ask students how we can waste less food at home, and then write their ideas on the board and provide examples from the teacher materials. Then as a teacher, you can go over the food storage section of the teacher's notes, which explains different ways that we can best store food to reduce food waste at home. And the infographic also provides visual examples of this. You can also introduce the concept of food waste solutions in different ways that we can reduce food waste at home using examples from the teacher materials. And then we're gonna get to the hands-on activity. One of the activities, the things you can eat, which we provide directions for on the next page. And so with this activity, you're going to, ahead of time before the class, prepare 4 cups of food. In 1 cup, you're going to have peeled carrots, and then in a second cup, you're going to have unpeeled carrots. In 1 cup, you're going to have unpeeled apples, and in another cup, you're going to have peeled apples. And so this can show students the differences in the amount of food waste produced if you peel and core different foods, and if you really need to, and so they can visually see the amount of food waste produced. And so you'll do that ahead of time, so then when they get to the classroom activity, all you have to do is have them watch the video, and then they can sample the food and see if they can tell the difference in taste and what they like and don't like. So having the video pulled up, this is what your cups would look like. So this is the amount of waste from an unpeeled carrot, which is really just cutting the top and bottom off, and the waste from a peeled carrot, which is the top and bottom parts and also all the peelings. And then similarly with an apple, cup 3, we see the apple core and the stem and the seeds. And then in cup 4, we see the stem, the core and the seeds, and also all the peelings. So once you have students sample the food, you can ask them to explain what they thought the different tastes were like. Is one apple piece better than another, and why? And then is there a way it could be better without wasting as much food? And you can also explain how the food waste could be turned into something else. Like for example, the carrot waste could be used to make a veggie stock. The apple skins could be mixed with cinnamon and sugar and baked for a dessert. And then you can save all of the food scraps for the next activity in this lesson, which is the classroom compost bin. So if we scroll back up to the lesson procedure, you can have, you can introduce the terms compost, decomposer, and compostable, which again, all these words are in the teacher's materials, and go over further explaining compost, which is also in the teacher's materials. And we have more detailed information if you're working with older kids versus less detailed information with younger kids. And then we also have a visual example in an optional PowerPoint that you can use, which is linked in the teacher's materials. Then you can have students do the post test if you're doing the post test with them, and then guide them through the second activity, which is the classroom compost bin. So we have the activity for the classroom compost bin written below here. And so you can start out by showing them examples of compostable and non-compostable food, which we have here. And so you can cut these out and hold them up, or just show them on a page. And we have the answers here so that as the teacher, you would know what's compostable and not compostable. So the main idea is that meat, eggs, and dairy are not compostable, and other items like fruit, veg, and yard waste are compostable. And also things like a plastic bottle, which is kind of a wild card, not compostable, but is recyclable. So you can also think about those materials. And you can also ask students to maybe share some examples that they've come up with of things that they have in their own fridge or in their own house that are compostable or non-compostable. And then you can guide students through building compost bins in small groups while you share information from the teacher's materials on composting. And we have more information for older students. For example, you can explain that composting requires a ratio of more carbon to nitrogen, more brown to green. But for younger students, you might just ask them, did we add more soil or more food waste? And ask them why they think that is. So we have further down a printable classroom compost instruction sheet so that you can have students just follow the directions and make their own compost bin. This is reusing materials from another lesson plan, which is in food waste in the environment. It's lesson 1, food waste and water, where they use a 2-liter bottle to make a mini landfill. And so you can reuse those materials in this classroom compost bin. Alternatively, you could use materials that they would find around the house, like an old milk or water jug. Or if you're doing the vermicompost, instead of a pie tin, you can always use an old takeout container that's been washed, and maybe some aluminum foil. And we also have the video for this that you can have students watch, which shows them how to build their own classroom compost bin using materials that are commonly found around the house or reusing that mini landfill. Then once they've built their own classroom compost bins, you can discuss with them some more details about composting, that it's a great way to recycle nutrients from food waste for things like gardening, how to use compost. Again, going back to that PowerPoint that we link in our teachers' materials, you can use that for some visuals of what a full-size compost bin or pile outside might look like. And then also explain that composting is great, but we only want to use it as a last resort. So the main idea is to reduce food waste, reuse food waste, and then compost as a last resort, just like reduce, reuse, recycle. And then as an optional extension activity, you can have students view their compost bins weekly, write and draw in their journals describing what they see and seeing that decomposition process, making sure that they're stirring the compost frequently. Or maybe doing some science experiments to see if they do stir the compost versus if they don't stir the compost, what happens and how quickly it breaks down, what does it smell like, using their senses. If you opt to do the vermicompost activity, we have these printouts that you can provide students with instructions on caring for their worm bin. And we also have directions for building the vermicompost, which is composting with worms. So we see here on the right that we have a pie tin or another similar container, and they're going to use garden soil, so not like potting soil. They're going to use strips of newspaper, and they're going to have red wiggler worms and small bits of food waste. So it is different than traditional composting. There are a little bit more requirements, but we provide that information, and that's why we also have the care guidelines for taking care of the worms. And then you can always have students take their own observations at home and report back to the class. So once the students have built their own compost and or their own vermicompost, you can review with them, asking them what are some things that they can do to reduce food waste at home. How can they reuse food waste that they would normally throw away? And making sure that they get those infographics that we provide on the website. And then you can optionally follow up the next day to see how many of them have communicated with their family and friends about food waste using those infographics. So if I go back to the main page on the Nature of Teaching, the food waste page where all the food waste lesson plans are, if we scroll down here, we see our related links. And so this is where the infographics are going to be. So we have infographic food waste reduction strategies for home. So if we click on that, we're taken to a printable infographic with information and visuals on reducing food waste at home that they can use for conversation starters with their families. So that was the Food Waste Solutions for Home lesson plan from the Food Waste Solutions unit of lesson plans on the Nature of Teaching. We hope you come back and see us again soon.
All right, I want to thank my colleague Rebecca Cates again for covering lesson 2 for us. And really, when you look at lesson 2 and the examples and the activities that you can use within the home, I really love the composting. I absolutely love using materials that you would find like old takeout containers and milk cartons. These are easy things for students to do either as homework or even activities within a homeschooling curriculum or within private schools. These lesson plans are applicable to any education setting that fits the grade standards in mind. And then even beyond that, the extension activities and the optional activities in this lesson in particular are incredibly useful. So I want to once again thank Rebecca Cates for covering both of our lesson plans. But with that, I will turn it back over to Lauren.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank you all for joining us for this Nature of Teaching Professional Development webinar entitled Food Waste Solutions, covering both lessons on food waste solutions at school and at home. As John said, these are really great lessons for students as it helps demonstrate how a few simple changes in life can help reduce waste both at home and at school. So with that, if you enjoyed this webinar, which I hope you did, I encourage you to click on the card in the top right of your screen to visit our Nature of Teaching YouTube channel, which is also shown here. And so this is where you can find more lesson plans like this, as well as sneak peeks directly related to this webinar. To obtain your certificate of completion for this webinar, you can click on the second card in the top right of your screen. Here you'll be directed to a short Qualtrics survey and then to help us provide feedback, or for you to provide feedback on the program. And once that's completed, you'll be automatically emailed your certificate of completion, which you can see here on this screen. So again, we really hope that you consider this, this opportunity and future opportunities for professional development webinars offered by the Nature of Teaching team. Until then, thank you for engaging youth with nature.